The Strife of Camlann is a 2021 novel by Sean Poage, or Pogue, or however you say his name, but anyways, it is book 2 in the so-called Arthurian Age, after the retreat to Avalon, which I recently reviewed. It begins in 471 AD in Cathedras, which is Glasgow, essentially. Gawain travels a short trip from home looking for a smith for their community. Peredur stayed in service to Arthur and his father, the previous smith, followed after. Then he gets called a deserter by a son of Caw and gets into a brawl. He lets slip that Edmic fell in Gaul. He's still sworn to secrecy. Everyone thinks Arthur is alive. The last year, more time will pass in this book than just this as well. Actually, many, many years will pass in this book. It's very different in that structure than the first book. Maglo is the smith he's speaking to, though, and the first new character we meet. He is busy fixing pots, hinges on the gate, etc. The action comes with the cattle raids, at least at the start. I'm not sure exactly what I can say as the plot of this one isn't immediately obvious. It's less straightforward than it is in the first book. We do have Gildas, and Ambrosius is dying, and Modred is important as well, more so than in book 1. And some of this book is actually from the point of view of Rian, now that she's not left behind while Gawain marches to war. The book has happenings, but it doesn't really get a solid plot aim and kicked into gear until about a fourth of the way through. With all the chapter art, we also have some battle maps for Badon and Camlann, more familiar to followers of the legends of Arthur than you'd get from those from book 1, right? But Arthur is dead now, so how do these work, right? At least that was my initial thought. This book brought me lots of pain in a way. It kind of hurt, right? Like it made me nauseous actually at times, and I kind of hated it. But that's just something that happens in the book, nothing that the author does wrong. So what I'm just saying is that the author managed to get a lot of emotion out of me, and it really hits home, to be honest. In that sense, it is rather effective, and the plot following such pain is worth it and satisfying in the end. Poage does go for the Saxon shore was manned supposedly by Saxons take, which I don't agree with, seeing as archaeological evidence only points to a 5th century for such a Saxon presence, coinciding with the invasion timeline when the forts were built in the 3rd century. But it's debatable, so not a big deal, I guess. My information could be wrong, and I do need to read up on it more anyways. But I do like that the treatment of Saxons get, again, more nuanced and normal than anyone else I've read doing Arthurian stuff. But we do get into the more classical historical view as well, and Saxons are going to be fought here. What's also really well handled is the doubt, the questioning of Arthur living or not, and I think this kind of gets into the once and future king aspect, but I do wish we had gotten more of Modred, but a lot happens, and it is actually shorter than the first book. It is very sword and shield. It's very much not romantic, not like the medieval romances at all. Very different feel than any other Arthurian books I've read. Very reliant on a certain type of historical research from Jeffrey Ashe again. This one less so, as that's really the first book that follows that, but really well done as far as historical research is considered, and like not in the fantasy themes of like Lawhead's Pendragon books, and way, way, way better than Cornwell's ahistorical Warlord Chronicles. So while book 1 really finished the story, this one also finished the story in some way, and I believe there's actually a 3rd book coming out, which I think is more of a collection of prequel stories, I think, of Arthur, which will be interesting to read. Anyways, very enjoyable. Again, I recommend to anyone who's an Arthurian fan and wants a fresh take to the legend.